don't think you can really go
Double.
One enemy remaining.
this for Kingdom of Heroes. So much more like amazing Genshin Impact content. What's up y'all, it's David or David, and today I want to go over something that's very long overdue, the domain guide for what I believe is the current best place to farm artifacts, the Momiji-Dyed Court. I like farming this domain because the Emblem of Severed Fate artifact and the Shimenawa set are both really meta relevant right now. Just about every character in the game can run either of these two sets to great success. In this video, I'll be covering general tips on how to approach this domain and what to watch out for, what characters I think you should bring along with what characters to avoid bringing, and finally I'll cover some teams that I like to run and other viable options. As always, runs will be included as well as builds in the very end. So the first tip is probably the most obvious one: use the Leyline Disorder. This Leyline Disorder basically gives you a ton of bonus elemental damage based on what platform you're standing on, whether it be Cryo or Pyro. You want to be standing and fighting on these platforms based on what team you're using, and it might seem tough with the Lava Churl jumping and dashing all over the map. Once the domain is activated, I like to run to either straight behind the Lava Churl to fight against the wall so he doesn't dash far, or I like to run straight to whatever platform I want to be fighting on and wait for him to dash there. If you don't have a healer or shielder, you can use taunting elemental skills to safely guide the Lava Churl in whatever direction you choose. Speaking of healers and shielders, tip number 2 is bring one. Shielders like Xiangling or Xingqiu make everything just that much easier, and you can focus less on dodging and more on your skill rotations. Even like a Geo character like Ningguang that can proc a crystallize reaction helps tremendously with the generated electro shield. If you don't have a shielder leveled up, then running a healer is highly recommended for the stray hits that you might take. The Lava Churl attacks are pretty easy to dodge, but the Abyss Mage pops up literally like right next to you with its electro AoE attack, and situations tend to get pretty hairy without a shield. While we're on the topic of shields, tip 3 is bring the correct elements. Firstly, you need someone to be able to blow up the electro shields on the Lava Churl and the Abyss Mage. I cannot stress this one enough. The Lava Churl will be insanely easier to defeat without its shield, and the Abyss Mage without its shield might as well be like another slime or like a sleeping Hilichurl. The best elements to strip the shields are Cryo and Pyro, and it just so happens that this domain buffs both of those. Hydro also works really well against the Electro Shield, but the initial shield damage is not that high. Instead, it will just decrease slowly from Electro Charge damage. Anemo and Geo are supportive elements here and work pretty well. Whatever you do, try to avoid using Electro characters for obvious reasons. The Slimes are immune to Electro, Abyss Mage has an Electro shield, and the Lava Churl has a huge Electro shield and huge Electro resistance. The only Electro character that can really be like okay to bring is Shogun, but she's used less for her Electro damage and more so for the utility that she provides. For tip number 4, my last tip before I get into the characters portion, try to avoid applying Cryo, Hydro, or Pyro to yourself without having a shield on. These elements will cause elemental reactions with the Electro enemy's attacks and might be like the death of a run. So I want to really quickly go over some individual characters that are generally good to bring to this domain, as well as a few of the bad ones. I'm going to be organizing this by role, so here on the screen shortly, you'll see DPS characters are drivers, which are the characters you'll be controlling for the most part. Sub-DPS characters who do most of their work off-field, and finally utility characters who bring non-damaging help to the table. Hu Tao and Yoimiya are your standard like Pyro DPS characters that just turn on their elemental skill and just go nuts with Pyro damage. They are super useful for blowing up the shields and dealing damage to enemies here, especially on the Pyro platform. On the other hand, Ganyu and Ayaka are currently the best and hardest hitting Cryo characters. Just like Hu Tao and Yoimiya, they're going to be the best at stripping the shields and DPSing the enemies, especially on the Cryo platform. For sub-DPS characters, Xiangling is and has been the best off-field Pyro DPS character for a long time. Just turn on her elemental burst and watch her go to work. Rosaria and Kaeya are very similar but for cryo damage. Kaeya has the ability to keep his cryo damage close to you as a defense mechanism, but also to help with your melee characters, while Rosaria on the other hand has the benefit of buffing crit and laying down her DPS on one spot. Xingqiu, on the other hand, won't blow up the shields as quickly, but instead he lays down DPS over time and gives you plenty of damage reduction with his swords. Last but not least, the utility characters are a godsend here, with shielders probably being the most impactful. Zhongli gives you a huge shield, shreds resistances, and even can drop electro crystals for a second layer of protection. Xinyan and Diona also offer a shield, but with respective damage skills to complement the cryo and pyro platforms on this domain. Bennett and Jean are pretty much the premier healers for this domain, Bennett providing you with a very helpful attack buff and heal over time, while Jean will burst heal your entire party and also swirl your elemental reactions on the enemies. As for characters that I would generally avoid, again, any electro character here is going to have a tough time in this domain, and it would probably be best if you just use another character in that slot. The only exception here again really is Shogun, and that's more for her utility role and not the damage that she does. Now, putting all of that together, here are a few examples of teams that I like to bring to this domain and that I recommend using. The first team is Shogun National, and I basically just replaced the Shogun National team's Bennett slot with Ganyu. Ganyu is pretty much like Fire and Forget, where you just open with her Elemental Burst, and then that's pretty much all she does. I also like to lay down my Elemental skill just before the Lava Churl to make him dash in the direction towards the Cryo platform. The rest of the damage comes from Xingqiu and Xiangling's burst, and Shogun is there really just to be like the catalyst for reactions and just feed energy to everybody. Since this national team is pretty expensive, having 2 banner 5-star characters, you can use Rosaria National to a similar degree in playstyle, and this team only has 4 4-star characters. Rosaria is replaceable by Kaeya, but I like using her for the crit rate buff, and her elemental skill just naturally feels better. Another free-to-play team that I like using is the Reverse Melt 4-star comp, with Bennett, Xiangling, Rosaria, and Kaeya. I personally just like to stand around the Cryo platform with this team, since Rosaria and Kaeya are both Cryo sub-DPS characters, and because Xiangling gets just enough damage from the Bennett snapshot. Be careful using this team, however, because you have no shields or super armor, and Bennett is like pretty much just the solo healer here. Lastly, my favorite team to bring and style to play is the Unga Bunga Mono Geo team. If you have like the premier 5 stars, you can run Ito, Zhongli, Albedo, and Gorou, but I'm missing Albedo and I love Noelle, so I run the much more free-to-play version with Noelle, Geo Traveler, Gorou, and Ningguang. With this team, you pretty much just shield up and like smack away at everything, picking up electro crystals along the way for extra protection. And finally, I'd like to cover just a couple of alternate viable teams that I don't have or use, but would very likely do well in this domain. First is the standard Hu Tao Vape team. Hu Tao or even Diluc with their BFF Xingqiu would hold up really well in this domain. The last 2 slots on this team can be filled by like the standard double Geo like Albedo Zhongli, or with another Pyro character for the Pyro Resonance bonus and an Anemo character for swirl damage. Secondly is the Ayaka Freeze comp. The Ayaka Freeze comp would probably perform really well since Ayaka's burst just does nuts damage, enough to blow up the Lawachurl's shield and even the Abyss Mage's shield. Then once the shield is gone, you can freeze both of them and then the run is pretty much just finished from that point. Before you click away, thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure to smash that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video, and Elemental Burst that subscribe button and notification bell to support this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing that. Make sure to drop me a comment below if you want to see a certain video featured next, and I will check you all in the next video. See ya!
searching for this all my life.